This is a brief review of factoring by grouping. I'm sure as you've been learning about factoring, you ran into a few examples that are more difficult than others. Here we have an example of a trinomial with a leading coefficient. Sometimes the leading coefficient will not divide out. When this happens, you can use factoring by grouping. I've organized the process of factoring by grouping into 6 simple steps. You can write these down and have them next to you when you try each problem. Let's go over them one by one. First, we need to find the product of the first and last coefficients. In this example, 2x squared plus 3x minus 9, the first coefficient is 2 and the last coefficient is negative 9. When we multiply them together, 2 times negative 9, we get negative 18. The next step is to find the factor pair that adds up to the middle coefficient. In this example, the middle coefficient is 3. So let's look at the factors of negative 18 and find the factor pair that adds up to positive 3. Remember, the signs are important. Hopefully, you saw that negative 3 and positive 6 add up to give you positive 3. Let's use these. Step 3 is rewriting this equation with the new middle terms. So instead of writing 2x squared plus 3x minus 9, let's use the new factor pair that we found. Our new equation looks like this. 2x squared plus 6x plus a negative 3x minus 9. Step 4 says to group this new polynomial into 2 binomials. I take the first 2 terms, 2x squared plus 6x, and group them into their own binomial. The next 2 terms, negative 3x minus 9, into its own binomial. Step 5 asks us to get rid of any common factors from each of the binomials. Here, we have an underlying goal to try to get the binomials to look the same. I'll explain what I mean by that in a little while. Let's start with the first binomial, 2x squared plus 6x. Do you see the common factor that can be pulled out? 2x was the factor common to both terms, leaving you with the binomial of x plus 3. We can place what we just found underneath, and now let's look at the second binomial. Negative 3x minus 9. Do you see the common factor that can be pulled out? Since negative 3 can go into negative 3x and negative 9, we pulled that out, leaving a binomial of x plus 3. Now when we place it all together like this, we notice that 2 of the binomials look exactly the same, x plus 3 and x plus 3. This was the underlying goal that I was mentioning earlier. This is something that you want to aim for. And last but not least, step 6. Here we will consolidate and regroup our binomials. The reoccurring binomial of x plus 3 will factor out and can be written as one binomial. And what's left over, 2x and negative 3, will be grouped into its own binomial. And there you have it. Using factoring by grouping, we found that 2x squared plus 3x minus 9 factors into 2x minus 3 times x plus 3. And that wraps up our lesson on factoring by grouping.